Nitro Gold, welcome. Can I ask a philosophical question that I usually ask people to see where they are philosophically? Sure you can. Absolutely. Is this a test? Can I fail this test? Did existence originally come from nothing? All right, so the way that I would answer that question is first to consider the semantics of what we're trying to say here, which is perhaps boring, but I will follow my rule. Like whenever someone says it depends what you mean by this, let's try to iterate through ways that we could think about this question. So if we're saying existence as the physical world, right? Then we have to consider what nothing might mean given the Big Bang, which is what we know about. And the answer to that question is we don't know. We really don't know what happened prior to the Big Bang. We don't know if we're allowed to say that that is nothing. Like we don't know what, like nothing scientifically is actually like not something that's like decided upon. Like we don't kind of understand what this nothing could be. So it's hard to answer that question in that way. We could talk about existence as experience. We can answer this question in the terms of existence being something like experience. Once again, the question is then what do we think is nothing? And if we think nothing is like the absence of experience, then I would say yes. I think that you could answer that question that way. Then we have to consider when we're talking about experience, are we talking about like something that we kind of intuit as experience, as like human experience? And now we have this tricky challenge where evolution is pretty long and it culminates in this experience that we have, but it wasn't always that type of experience. So what do we actually think about, or what do we actually think is the line? Like, is it the limbic system where we start experiencing emotions, or now we get into questions of like, is a fly even experiencing anything? So when we talk about existence, are we talking about the experience of a fly, or are we talking about the type of experience that we have? And then I guess what's the only other way that we could talk about this? The way that's most akin to what we talk about in the document, where semantics itself, like our conceptual understanding of what existence means, what nothing means, all of that stuff, we can make sense of it through words. We can conceptualize that it comes from, evolution. We can conceptualize that it comes from Nitro Gold, welcome. Thank you for the follow. I guess that means I passed the test. So I would say that we have a practically similar understanding of each of these topics. However, they are different enough such that I do need to be precise when I try to explain what we're talking about when we say existence or nothing, etc. For me, this conceptual understanding, I can make sense of it through all these different ways. I have this conceptual understanding because of what I learned through my life, because of my genetics, that I have the brain that I do have that allows me to have this experience of what existence is and what nothing is, etc. So then I would say that the question is just, in this sense, I would say the question is inappropriate in that we can't actually get to a definition of what nothing means and how that would actually make sense to what existence in terms of either my experience or even my understanding of what existence is. Like it wouldn't make sense to describe that from or not from nothing. But you could. Like I guess you wouldn't want to say it in such a way that is the only way to describe it. I guess the takeaway is that we could give a justification for how existence comes from many different things, how existence could be described in many different ways. Yeah, I guess usually the takeaway from any of these types of questions is there's many different ways you could interpret that sentence. There's many different ways we could answer that sentence. There's many different ways you could argue that sentence and justify your argument. And the question is, which way of going about that, which interpretation is actually the most apt? And obviously we'll never get to an answer to that, but you could argue that, and you could be compelled by different arguments.